Before we really start talking about different elements of financial closing, just a quick understanding of what financial closing is all about. So, as you know, we talked about in the earlier sessions. So, finance is the ultimate drain pipe where all the final effect of all the transactions that take place across different domains, they are ultimately getting reflected in SAP financials. And then, of course, the data moves from finance to controlling, where you have a lot of slicing and dicing on the information, mainly from a management control perspective. So, from a monthly closing perspective, there are activities across all the different modules. So, there are activities within SD, there are activities within MM, there are activities within controlling, there are activities within finance. So the most important financial closing activities are uh, the ones that you are already aware of for people who are already working in the industry. You tend to create provisions, you charge depreciation for your assets, uh, you make entries for accruals and deferrals, you create financial statements for reporting purpose, you create provision for exchange rate loss, and there are a whole lot of other financial closing activities that we will slowly get into. And at the same time, there are also additional financial closing activities which are to be done at the year end. Like, for example, there is a concept of period open and period close in FI. So, which means that once the accounting period is completed, you have done your closing activities, you close the period so that there are no postings possible in the closed period, and then you open the future period, which will be enabled for postings. So there is a transaction screen in SAP where you are able to steer which periods you want to open or close and for what category of accounts, because you can enable the or you can open a financial period for all categories of accounts. So as you know, the different categories are A, D, K, and M and S. So A is for assets, D is for customers, K is for vendors, M is for materials, and S is for general ledger. So for each of these categories, you can have a separate closing schedule, and you also are empowered to have to make one consolidated closing, so you can close the books for all categories of accounts at the same time. And of course, at the end of the financial year, you have a year end close. So for depreciation accounting, you have to close the previous period and then you open the new period. And similarly for the books of accounts, you have to also do a closing. And there's a concept of a retained earnings account that we will slowly get into in one of these topics. So it is a very important topic because every year the profits, the accumulated profits for that particular year, they get carried forward to the next year. So in SAP, there is a mechanism by which the system finds out what is the total net profit that has accrued or the company has produced during that period, and that net profit is thereafter carried forward to the next year as a part of your retained earnings. That's the specific term used in SAP called retained earnings, and that is what gets added to your shareholders' worth or your final equity. So there are a lot of elements that we will talk about as a part of financial closing. So we will start with one particular concept, which is the concept of accruals and deferrals. Let us understand what are accruals and deferrals. So there are entries which you need to pass. So accruals are basically those accounting postings that you uh, need to make. For example, accrued interest on your bank fixed deposits. So you make an accrual posting so that you're able to, if you are basically reporting based on an accrual basis, then you have to accrue all the incomes or the expenditures for that particular period. Same applies to the deferrals as well. And then there are recurring entries. So for example, if you have a lease, for example, for a year, the lease rental you are bound to pay as per the lease agreement. So it's a same amount that needs to be posted every month. But what you want to do is that you want to automate the whole process so that you don't have to repeatedly post the journal entry every month. So SAP helps you to do that through creation of a recurring entry program. You create a template and then you simply execute. So it's like a push of a button every month end, and that same accounting entry will get posted and will get repeated over a period of time. Yeah. Okay, so let us now understand how you do the concept of accruals and deferrals. So there can be different kind of transactions, for that matter. You can have a service transaction, you can have a payment transaction. So it can be, as I mentioned, a prepaid rent that you pay. It can be any amount of cost or expense that is repeatedly incurred over a period of time and at a predefined date. Yeah, rental agreement is a classic example of an accrual or a deferred posting. So here is a quick example of an accrual or a deferral posting. So for example, let us talk about the example of a warehousing lease. So basically you have to create an accrual on a quarterly basis. Depending on the contract, it can be on a monthly basis or it can be on a quarterly basis. So you create the accruals, and you also have the facility of creating a reversal posting. So the reversal posting, I'll give you an example. For example, you have an accrual for, let's say, an unrealized exchange rate gain or a loss. Rather, it's a loss, because usually if there's a gain on foreign exchange, then such a gain is not anticipated as per the concept of prudence. But if it's a loss that you can foresee, because, for example, the Indian rupee has depreciated, and hence the amount that you need to pay for your vendor invoice will have to be more. So there's a loss that you expect. So here you can create a provisional booking at month end, and then you can time it so that this gets reversed the beginning of the very next month, so that when you're closing the books of the previous period, you are able to give effect to that unrealized loss. But then the ultimate effect will come when you actually make the payment and you realize the actual loss. So this is also something which can be possible through the reversal posting method. So now let us understand the main difference between an accrual or a deferral. So accruals are basically where the expense and the revenues belong to the current period and are posted to a subsequent period once the invoice has been received or issued. While deferrals is different in the sense that they are relating to a circumstance where an expense or revenue is posted to the current period only once you receive the invoice, but they may belong to a future period. So for example, you have incurred a cost, you've got an invoice for example, for particular expenditure for a service, and that service will be rendered in future period. So for this period, you are of course booking the invoice, but you may decide to split the expense over the number of periods for which you are receiving the benefits into future periods. It can be, for example, any kind of a maintenance activity. You are raising the bill in advance, but then the maintenance expenditure you're going to post, basically you're going to defer it to the future periods over which this expenditure will actually be realized. So these are the main difference. We'll see some examples also which will make it clear. So this is just a diagrammatic explanation of how you can do your accrual expenses and you can do deferrals. Now, to make it clear, we'll do a demonstration of how the accruals and deferrals work. So here we will use the functionality of accrual engine. So this is a new functionality which was introduced in the new GL. So as you know that you had classical GL before introduction of the new GL, and accrual engine is one of the features that was introduced as a part of new GL. In S4HANA, also this accrual engine is available by default, because in S4HANA, new GL is activated by default. So companies that are implementing S4HANA Finance, they do not have to worry about activating new GL or not. New GL features are automatically activated by default. So activation of new GL, the question of activation of new GL only arises in case of companies that are on ECC. So in this example, we will explain how the line items of the accrual engine are displayed, and what is the information system reports which are available to see how the accrual engine is creating their postings. So we will create entries for both actual values, and we will also look at simulated values, how you can do simulation using the concept of accrual engine. So to locate accrual engine, you have to go to accounting. Under that, you have financial accounting. Then you have general ledger. Then periodic processing, manual accruals, information system, and then you have a display posted accruals. So here we want to see what are the line items that are created once the accrual engine transaction is run. You enter the company code and a couple of other information, and then when you execute, you get the document that was posted. And you also have the feature of simulating for future postings. So what will the future postings look like? You can have a view of that as well. Go to program, execute. So here you see the next 3 months, you see the reports for, because for example, the accrual is set to expire in the next 3 months. You see the documents for the first 3 months, and for future accrual postings, you will only see a provisional document number, because there are no documents that are posted in the system. These are only provisional documents till the time the documents are actually posted. So in the next example, we will try to execute an actual or a deferral posting run. We'll do an actual posting run. So first we have to get into the transaction, start the run, and then we have to do some selections, like for which company code we are doing this accrual, and the template. So when we create a template, for example, the template means you create an accrual object where you specify what general ledger account will be debited, what account will be credited. System gives you an object number. So that object number you have to specify along with the company code. And you have the option of doing a test run first, look at the results. If you are satisfied with the results, then you do an actual run. So once again, you go to accounting, financial accounting, general ledger, periodic processing, and then you have the manual accruals. So you start the periodic accrual run. You enter the company code, then you enter the accrual object number. So this is the entry template that you have already created. Then the specific date on which you want to make the accrual, you have to mention here, and then you execute. So you get the accounting posting and the document number. So now we'll see how the posted entry looks like. Once again, you go to manual accruals and then information system and click on this option, display posted accruals. So I'm going for the option which displays the line items in the accrual engine. And I want to see the actual values. So I execute the program. And then I see the actual line item and the document date and the other details. So once again, we go to the periodic processing, manual accruals, information system again, display the posted documents. Now you look at the other option, which is the totals value. So I execute it. The only difference is that now we'll see the totals. So here I get only the totals view. So for example, the total rent is 6,000 rupees and a monthly accrual is 500. So then I see the total accruals. So we'll do the same exercise a bit slowly so that you get a hang of how it works. So what we do is that we will see how you display the line items of the accrual engine using the specific transaction. So this transaction is a part of the information system where you are able to get a line item display of the accrual engine template that has been created. So we'll use the easy menu. You go to accounting. Financial accounting. General ledger. Periodic processing. And then you have the option of manual accruals. For your information, you also have the ability to do automated accruals. So in that case, you create a template and then you set up an automated program by which the accruals can be repeatedly done by the system without manual intervention. So how to do automated accrual? That is something which is covered in the topic closing cockpit. So SAP has an offering called financial closing cockpit, where a lot of the financial closing activities can be automated, and you also get a view like a monitor or a cockpit where you can see each of the activities that has been planned, who is accountable, what is the state of execution. All that is very clearly displayed. Okay, So coming back to this topic, you go to information system, and if you want to see the posted accruals, so you have two options. You can see the accruals at the line item level or at the totals level. So first we'll see the line item level. System has become a bit slow, so so when you want to display the line items in the accrual engine, the actual posted values, you have to see mentioned which date. So assuming it's the current date, you can mention any other date. So the date on which you want to see the line items that have been posted. So you have the option of simulating the future postings. So you see the future postings, or you can display the actual values, actual posted values. And then you have to enter something called the accrual object number. So there's an accrual object category. SAP provides certain accrual object categories and then the accrual object number. So this is a template that you would have already created. So you create a template where you say that, okay, my total accruals is 6,000. This is for lease rental payment. Each month it is 500. So all that information is fed, and then you keep simply repeating the program every month without having to pass the same journal entry.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So for actual this accrual object category, like insurance is there, then lease rental or
Correct.
some. Okay, so this that standard format is provided by SAP, and that then in that particular format we have to fill up the details of prepaid expenses and all these things.
Correct. So they have provided certain number of object categories, but it is possible to create additional object categories also. But normally these are the ones which should suffice, but you have the option of creating additional object categories.
Okay, so suppose for insurance, so if like we are paying premium in the beginning of the year, okay, suppose in April, and then further whatever the suppose 1 lakh rupee, 1.2 lakhs rupees is there, then every month then 10,000 will be
exactly.
Yeah. So that how this particular accrual engine will work. Every month we have to do any entry, or system will automatically post the entry.
So basically you have two options, either manual or automated. If you do manual accruals, then you just have to do the actual postings. You go to the actual posting transaction, simply enter the object number against the object category and press execute. So the accrual entry will get posted. This is one option, which is the manual option. You also have the automated option, where you can use the financial closing cockpit and you automate this process. So then every month it will run as a batch job. So this
system will automatically post this entry at the end of month or beginning of month.
Correct. So both options are possible. Either you can do it manually or automated.
Okay, and actually this is, suppose insurance is there. So for insurance or lease payment, suppose we have a 2 or 3 lease agreement. Okay, so for different lease agreement, we have to create a different object.
Object numbers, correct. Object category will remain the same, but it will be a different object number.
Okay, number will change.
Correct. In that case, you create one Z_lease. Let's say you can name it as per your convenience, and then against that object you can create multiple lease. So you can have multiple lease contracts. So if you have 3 lease contracts, then you can use 1, 2, 3. Yes, please.
Yeah, sir. these are under the restriction of accrual objects. Okay, but if you
Mhm.
don't feel anything, and will it create accrual for all the ledgers or what? What will happen? Because this is about the restriction, so it will apply only to this category of objects.
Yes. So basically, you
So,
see, if you do not specify any particular accounting principle, then it will apply equally to all the parallel ledgers if you have implemented parallel ledger. But if you specify a particular accounting principle or a ledger, then it will impact only that particular ledger.
so sir, in accounting principle, will keep that ledgers is will specify the ledgers, right?
Correct, correct. So, as per the concept of parallel ledger, for example, if you are reporting based on three accounting principles, one can be your Indian Companies Act, one can be your IFRS because your company has got European presence, another can be the tax books of accounts. So, in such a situation, you have to set up three different parallel ledgers. You have a leading ledger, and the other two ledgers are subordinated to the parallel ledger, and they are called non-leading ledger. So, when you are creating an accrual, you have the option of creating an accrual for all or for one or two of those accounting principles or ledgers.
Okay, okay. So in accounting principle, we'll have to select whichever is the books
Correct,
of accounts in which we have to do it. And what is
correct.
accrual types are in that in general data structure? Accrual type.
So there are some standard objects which are given, that is, what kind of accrual it is, so it can be used, it is not mandatory. If you want, you can set up separate accrual types, like one can be for insurance, one can be for other rentals. So you can set up different accrual types just so that you are able to
Okay, okay,
categorize. If there are
okay.
many
So
accrual transactions, you can set up your types.
so accrual types may be like if whether the accrual is time based accrual or a consumption based accrual. Is that different mode of accrual types or?
Mostly these are accruals which are time based. The kind
Okay,
of accruals that are permitted here is time based, which can be straight line, or you can use certain percentage. When you are setting up
okay,
accruals, you can apply percentages.
okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
So when you execute the accruals transaction, you are able to see the actual accounting document, the date, and all the other details are shown here. So this is the option of being able to see the line items. You can also see the cumulative accrual template as well, where you see the totals. So that's a totals level. So here you see for future periods, the planned posting amounts are shown here, and you also see what is the cumulative amount that is that gets accrued over a period of time. So here, what I'm showing you is another element, that is how to do the accrual run manually. So this is the transaction. Under periodic processing, you have manual accruals, and then you have the option of starting periodic accrual run. And this is the transaction that you can execute manually at the end of the period, or you automate this. Here you have to select the company code, and you have to enter the object number, or you can pull it up from the drop down menu. And then we have to mention the key date, the date, which is basically the end of the period for which you are doing the accrual run. So to execute it, you have to click on accrual run and then execute. So this will show you the actual entry which was posted. If there's a problem, then it will give you a red message. Here it's a green message, success message, which means that the document is posted. And the amount posted is also mentioned. Then you come back. So once posted, if you want to see how it looks like, go to financial accounting. General ledger. Periodic processing. Manual accruals. Then you have the information system. Usually in all the modules, you'll have this option, information system, where the standard reports are provided. Click on display posted accruals. You have two options. You can either display at the line item level or at the totals level. So whatever historic accruals has been posted. So here what you have to do, you have two options. Either you want to simulate future postings, or whether you want to see actual values only. For example, at this point of time, you want to see actual values, and for this object category and object number. Then I enter these details, go to program and execute. Here you see the actual document number and all the other posting details. You can also do this, repeat the same for the totals item. So there you see the totals view. General ledger. Probably it's a network issue, which is why there's a lag. So under periodic processing, you have manual accruals, and then you have the information system, where you can see the posted accruals, and now this time we see the totals value. So here we select actual values and object categories and object number is there. So you go to program and execute. So here you see the totals amount of the accruals. So now we will talk about another important topic which is very closely related to the financial closing, which is the concept of accounting standards and how are these accounting standards mapped in SAP. So what we'll try to understand is what is the mechanism by which in SAP you are able to report based on multiple accounting principles to comply with the local legal regulations as well as the international regulation in case if the organization has got business beyond the domestic, and how you can use the concept of parallel ledgers to handle different scenarios. So usually, as you know, that accounting standards are issued by the ICAI, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and which is applicable for non-companies, and for non-companies also the accounting standards are notified by the central government. So the same accounting standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants are notified for non-com. So for practical purposes it is the same, but for companies they are under the boundaries, they operate under the boundaries of the Companies Act, which again prescribes or which again mandates the use of the Indian accounting standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So as you see in this picture, we'll try to explain what is this concept of parallel ledger. See, if you are using parallel ledgers, so parallel ledgers are available, the functionality is available by default in SAP S/4HANA. So companies that are on ECC 6, which has not activated NewGL, they cannot use parallel ledger. So for ECC also, companies which have implemented NewGL, they can use the parallel ledger concept, but parallel ledger concept is available by default in SAP S/4HANA. So in the parallel ledger concept, you are able to maintain only one set of GL accounts. So you don't need to repeat or create additional general ledger accounts to comply with the requirements of multiple accounting principles. So that is where it has made life a bit more simpler. So earlier you had to create separate set of GL accounts for alternative accounting principles and then create adjustment entries at the end of the period for the adjustments to basically match with the requirements of the other accounting principles. But now that is not required. You have the same chart of accounts, same number of GL accounts, and then you are activating these parallel ledgers. So you have one ledger which is the leading ledger. As you see that this is an extract from the configuration screen where you have to indicate which ledger is the leading, and then you have to specify which other ledgers that you are using, which are non-leading ledgers. So here in this example, we are using two other non-leading ledgers. One can be the US GAAP and the other can be the local GAAP, for example. So hence it is possible that you have, for example, a European company, they will have IFRS as the leading ledger. For an Indian company, it will have the Indian Companies Act as the leading ledger. And then you can have other parallel ledgers also. You can have any number of additional ledgers, which are the non-leading ledgers, but you will only have one leading ledger. So with this parallel ledger concept, whenever you are posting any accounting document, you have the option. If you don't specify anything, it will post to all ledgers. But if you specify one particular ledger, then it will post to that ledger only, to the exclusion of the other parallel ledgers. That's something that you have to keep in mind. And then when you are doing your financial reporting, you simply specify that you want the PL account and balance sheet for which ledger. So let us understand the need for parallel ledgers. So one of the reasons why parallel ledgers were used at earlier is the financial consolidation part, though there are other tools that are used for financial consolidation. But here, for example, in one case, you have the US GAAP, for example, as one accounting principle, and then you have, for example, the IFRS as another accounting principle. So in the old system, the company needs to have the complete books of accounts for US GAAP, and then of course in IFRS there are some deltas. For example, some assets will need to be depreciated at higher levels. So in that case, the profit that is reported in IFRS will be less as per the US GAAP. So these adjustments needed to be made manually at the time of closing of the books of accounts. So the same applied not only to the fixed assets ledger, but also to the main general ledger as well. And this created the need for a lot of manual intervention and creation of these adjustment postings. And now with the introduction of parallel ledgers, it has become a lot more easier, because here it's a very clean approach. You have two ledgers, so all general ledger postings, all fixed asset postings will route to either all or one or more of the different ledgers at source. So it is very easy to then segregate and create a clean set of books for each of these accounting principles. So what kind of companies need this parallel accounting solutions, and which companies are benefited the most? So if you look at decentralized environments where a company operates out of multiple geographies and with multiple source applications, and where there could be a need of doing a lot of data validation. So, and especially consolidation, financial consolidation, whether you use SAP financial consolidation or whether you use any other tool for financial consolidation, life becomes a lot more difficult if you have one ledger and then you create adjustment entries for other ledgers. So it was a very tough job earlier to consolidate. Now, regardless of whether you use the SAP financial consolidation, or you use any other external financial consolidation package like Hyperion, or so on, it will be very easy to get the information reflected in the financial consolidation, because now all the financial postings are segregated based on the different ledger. So when you consolidate, you can consolidate for the particular ledgers that you want. So life has become a lot more easier from a consolidation perspective due to the introduction of the parallel ledger concept. So let us take an example of a company which is based out of Germany. They need to report predominantly based on international accounting standards. So that becomes their leading ledger. And then, assuming that the German company has also got presence in the US, they will also need to report based on the US GAAP. So in that case, you need two valuations. Not only in case of general ledger and fixed assets, but also in case of stock. There can be some difference in the way inventory is valuated. So if you go with the concept of parallel ledgers, then you will have three separate figures and in three different ledgers, and reporting is simplified without the need for manual adjustments. So this slide is just to reinforce the concept that you can have a single transaction. You're posting a simple journal entry, and that journal entry can create multiple create postings in more than one ledger. So it can be one ledger. Assuming you have three ledgers, you have the option of posting to only one ledger, or to two ledgers, or to all of them. And if you don't specify any ledger at the point of entry, then it will impact all the different ledgers that has been set up in the system.
Sorry,
Mind
sir.
you, yes.
Sorry, one point. Here, when we are talking about ledger A and ledger B, is this is the type of books, right? We are not talking about one particular ledger.
Ledger
In the
means
sense that
in a parallel ledger,
yes,
in the concept of SAP, this is the accounting principle.
yeah, okay. So we are talking about IFRS is one and US GAAP is one, if at all we are talking about that, right?
Correct.
So we are not talking about that if there is a ledger of say cost of goods sold, okay, or say inventory into the books of accounts, then we are not referring that inventory will have ledger 1 and ledger 2, which are independent. There will be only one ledger for the inventory, but basis the books of accounts which you will select, either US GAAP or
Correct.
IFRS, the present result outcome which will be displayed on the system will be different.
Correct. So ledger
Okay,
will be one in the sense that a GL account can be one, right?
yeah,
You
GL,
use the same
sorry,
inventory account,
GL.
but for each of the accounting principles, the system will reflect a different value because of the
Okay.
difference in valuation.
Correct, correct. So same GL account, which will be 5 digit or a 6 digit number, which is same GL account. There can be different amount which bases the type of ledger which you are looking at, late IFRS or US. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So here it is just an example of how the posting differences can look like. So you have the leading ledger, and then you have the non-leading ledger for the local valuations for the different geographies. So you can have a headquarter, say it can be anywhere in India. So in that case, Companies Act becomes your leading ledger, and then you have non-leading ledger for the local valuations in other countries. So here, as you see that the GL account, so this kind of reflects on the same question that we were just talking about, that the GL accounts will remain the same, just the values will be different.
Sir, just 1 minute. Hello. Sir,
Yes.
on the just preceding slide, Here,
Yes.
if the leading ledger is my international valuation, say IFRS, and the local valuation, say IGAP, if I am passing an entry or selecting valuation under leading ledger, so whether that corresponding entry will automatically get passed under non-leading ledger or what?
No, when you are passing the journal entry, you have the option of specifying a particular ledger. If you do not specify a ledger, it will impact both your leading as well as non-leading ledgers. But if you specify one particular ledger or two ledgers, then it will impact only those ledgers. That's the way it
Okay.
works.
Okay, and sir, if I similarly, if I want to pass only entry in non-leading and not in IFRS books, then is it possible just by
Possible.
specifying?
Yes,
Okay,
possible.
okay, and even this all GL code, for example, I'm just hypothetically saying, sir, this expense depreciation or this particular FA, and I'm talking more about say foreign exchange fluctuation. If I want to do that foreign exchange fluctuation only under ICAP, okay,
Correct.
and not under IFRS. So will I have to specify against each GL code that this will be used for local valuation or not? If I'm doing a foreign exchange valuation run, then do I have to specify for which GL account I will have to do this non-leading ledger valuation?
No, so when you are doing a foreign exchange run, it's just a transaction that you execute and you specify which ledger, and the postings happen through the automatic account determination.
Okay.
So foreign
And
exchange
sir,
valuation happens through an automatic posting.
sir, I was talking about that period, and we did that valuation for foreign exchange outstanding items.
Correct.
So that for that, definitely, if I'm using SAP's automated valuation run, then I will have to specify which GL it should apply and which GL it
No,
should
you
not
don't have
apply.
to specify GL. GL gets picked up automatically. You just have to specify the ledger.
Okay, whether it's a non-leading or a leading.
Correct.
Okay.
And if you don't
Okay, sir.
specify,
Thank you.
it will reflect in all the ledgers.
Sir, and another question. Sorry, if I have to apply run this exchange fluctuation differently under leading ledger and differently under non-leading, is it possible? So there will be two different valuation run. If I can I perform that?
No, so exchange restatement of, let's say, foreign currency gain or loss, that will
Yeah.
differ based on the currency.
No,
So
that's what, sir. That's what. So I'm just giving an example. In IFRS, is my functional currency is US dollar. Okay. So in IFRS books, the FX fluctuation valuation run will happen only on transaction other than US dollars. But for my IGAP, if my functional currency or local currency is INR, then it will have to run FX fluctuation run on all the transaction other than INR. Okay. So under both the ledgers,
correct.
the transaction on which the FX run has to be done, revaluation has to be done, those are different transactions. So can I have two valuation run?
Yeah, why not? Because see, uh, you need not do two separate valuation runs. You do one valuation run. You specify. You don't. If say you have two parallel ledgers, then you don't specify any ledger, and you run it. System will automatically calculate the separate foreign exchange gain or loss based on each of the accounting principles and do the posting.
Okay, so leading ledger will automatically refer it to IFRS and then calculate
Correct,
FX
because you
fluctuation.
have already specified what is the leading ledger. System
Yes,
knows that it's
yes.
a leading ledger. And if you
Okay,
don't
so I will
specify,
need to specify GL. Okay.
no, no, unless if it's a valuation which is only impacting one particular ledger, which is rare, you don't have to specify any ledger when you are
Right, sir.
doing, but you have
Correct.
the option.
Okay. So in this possible that even if I don't specify, then also it will be accurately being calculated under both the ledgers.
Correct. That is the way it works with the automatic account
Okay.
determination.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
So another important concept to keep in mind from parallel accounting purposes, that See, when you are setting up a chart of accounts, you will have some accounts which are shared, so which will remain constant regardless of, and there will be some accounts which are only required for one particular accounting principle to the exclusion of other accounting principles. So, which is perfectly fine. So in that case, you set up your chart of accounts in such a way that you have all the accounts, you create all the accounts as a part of one single chart of accounts. That's it. So just an example of posting differences relating to the depreciation. So for example, as per the international valuation, let's say in IFRS, you are entitled to charge a higher rate of depreciation than as compared to the Indian accounting standards. So in this case, you do one depreciation run, but the system will basically post different amounts in case of depreciation for each of the specific depreciation areas, which are again mapped to the ledgers. So as we had talked about in the concept of asset accounting, so when you're creating a depreciation area, so under a chart of depreciation, you have a depreciation area. Each of the depreciation areas will need to be mapped to one of the ledgers. So which can be the leading ledger or the non-leading ledger as well. So that mapping needs to be established to make sure that the parallel ledger concept works for the depreciation postings as well. So this is just an additional thing that one has to keep in mind, that each if you're using asset accounting and you have parallel ledgers, then each depreciation area will need to be mapped to the appropriate ledger. So if you are using parallel ledgers, when you are displaying any particular accounting document, to be able to view the different ledgers, you have to select the general ledger view. So there you get both the options and you can select whichever ledger group that you want. So here, this is just an example of the same accounting posting, and as you see on the left hand side, the ledger group is specified there. So you see the same accounting document, two postings using the same general ledger accounts, and you have different amounts that are posted. And similarly, when you are doing a financial statement version reporting, when you are reporting the financial statements at period end for the year or for a specific period, at that point of time, you have another option that to specify the ledger, and then accordingly you will be able to see the final reports. So this ledger field has been newly introduced with the introduction of the concept of parallel ledger. So this field was earlier not available before the new GL was introduced. So even when you are running the report of GL balance list, so there you have the option of specifying which ledger. So you can just toggle between different ledgers quite conveniently. Chart of accounts we have already covered, so we will skip that. There is another concept of multiple currencies. We will talk about how the exchange rates work and how you work with multiple currencies. So there are 4 types of currencies. First of all, you have a group currency, which is basically the currency for in which the group consolidates the financial information. For example, if the company is headquartered in France, then the group currency will be euro. If it's in India, the group currency will be INR. Then you have the transaction currency, which is the currency in which the transaction, the instant transaction is happening. Then you have the local currency, which is the local currency of the company code of the legal entity for which you are reporting. So these are the 3 main currency. There's another concept of hard currency which is not used that much. So let us only focus on the group currency, the transaction currency, and the local currency. So the need for multiple currencies is to be able to make sure that you're able to do transactions in multiple currencies, and then you need a mechanism to ensure that the values that are posted in multiple currencies can all be translated to one common base currency, which is the local currency or the company code currency. So local currency is also known as the company code currency. So for a European company, you can have local currency is euro, and then foreign currency can be USD, GBP, Chinese yuan, and so on.
Sir, what is group currency? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, group currency is basically the currency which is applicable to the group company, or the currency at which you are consolidating your financial results. For example, let's talk about Tata as an organization. They are basically an Indian company headquartered in India, and they will consolidate their financial results of different. They are globally present, and for different regions, they have their own set of financial statements. For US, you have USD as their local currency. For Germany, Europe, you have euros. But then ultimately they'll have to consolidate and present their financial statements in India, and they are required to abide by the requirements of Indian Companies Act. So the group currency for Tatas will be INR, India, because that is the currency in which they are required to consolidate their financial statements. So now we'll do a simple example to clarify how the currencies are maintained and how the exchange rate types are maintained. So we'll do a simple demonstration of how this currency thing works. So a little bit of a historic context is what we see here. So when the European Monetary Union was set up, the base currency was changed to euro, and then the translation of between different currencies in the European region was carried out using the base currency euro, and hence the new exchange rate type euro was defined. So this is basically how the concept of base currency originated. So in this case, for exchange rate relationships within the European Monetary Union, the base currency was euro, and hence the base currency is set up as an indicator in SAP, and which is set up in case of European companies, it is set up as euro. So as one of the configuration items, we will see how you fix the currency and carry out the transaction as per legal requirements. So there is a transaction screen where you have to select the base currency, and you have to specify the exchange rate type also. So, and then also you have to specify the kind of exchange rate quotation. It can be direct quote or an indirect quote. But let's first see the screen where you set up the base currency. So we are going to configuration, hence you don't find it in the front end, but you go to SPRL. Click on SAP NetWeaver, then you have the general settings, and then currencies. So here, this is where you set up the currency codes. The SAP provides all the standard currency codes. Now you can make changes and you can specify additional currency codes if necessary. So here, if you say euro, it will take you to the currency which is already maintained in the system. So you see the details of the currency, and so here you can set euro as the primary currency, or for an Indian company you can set INR as the primary currency. So this is the screen where you are maintaining the basic settings for currency. Usually you don't need to touch this because it is all predefined in SAP. Very rare instances you need to get into the screen and do some configuration.
Sir, this changes.
Yes.
Sir, these changes can be done subsequently, or it has to be at the time of setting up the entire company configuration into SAP.
Yeah, this has to be done upfront. So if you are setting up a new currency, then of course you can make you can add new currencies. But for currencies which has already been created, these basic settings become irreversible if there are transactions in the system.
Okay. So we can't
Now-
change that primary currency or something like that.
Primary currency is one time, no.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So now we'll look at exchange rate types. So there are multiple exchange rate types available. They are standard predefined provided by the system. For example, standard translation at average price, which is the exchange rate type M. And you can get into the configuration. So we saw the currencies and the exchange rate types. That's one.
Sir, which are other exchange rate types, M and P, and what was the difference in that?
So you have an average exchange rate types. M is for the average. There are other exchange rate types also which are provided in the system.
But how it differs, an actual transaction during booking or
Yeah, so one type can be that you are doing a real time. So on, say for example, for an organization, let's take an example. There's an organization which has directly integrated with an agency which is maintaining the foreign currency translations on a real-time basis, like Reuters or Bloomberg. So in that case, the exchange rate type will be the actual, because there the exchange rates are available at real time. You have other options, like for example, it can be the average rate. So you see the exchange rate prevailing at the beginning of the period, end of the period, and then the average rate. Another option can be the beginning exchange rate prevailing on the beginning of the period, then on the date of the transaction, and then you take the average rate. You can even have daily the exchange, the quote at the beginning of the day, quote at the end of the day, and then you take the average quotes.
Sir, and
So-
that there were certain ticks which were to be made against each, like type M, type P. So, does it make any difference of selection, or what was the relevance of the selection? Because one of the column which was been ticked was having I and V. So whether it was for invoicing related or what, I couldn't understand.
No. So it is basically you have to select, it's one time. You have to select the exchange rate type. I mean, when you are maintaining the exchange rates, it is based on the specific exchange rate type that you take. It can be for M, it can be for any other exchange rate type also. So we'll see the same example in a step by step.
Oh, okay, sir.
So you enter SPRO. Reference IMG. So this is one of the basic settings. So it comes under SAP NetWeaver and then general settings, currencies, check currency codes. So here you have the list of all the different currency codes which are provided by standard SAP. You can look at a specific currency. So let's say if you want to see Euro, so under Euro, you see there's a tick called the primary. So this means that this becomes the primary currency, and other currencies will be subordinated to the main currency. So usually this decision is taken based on whichever is the headquarters of the organization. So for a European-based company, you would select Euro as the primary currency. So here we have
Sir, sorry. Whether this primary currency has to be a group currency only, or it can also be a local currency?
usually primary currency will be the group currency, because if the company is headquartered in a certain country, then the
Yeah.
consolidation will be performed in the exchange rate or in the currency of that same country.
Okay, okay.
So next, we will look at the exchange rate types. What are the different types of exchange rate? So here you see that there are multiple exchange rate types. So SAP provides standard exchange rate types, and one can create a new exchange rate type also. So let us look at one specific exchange rate type which is commonly used. So you click on position and you specify M. Here you see that
Sir, yeah.
Yes.
Sir, will you explain that there are 3 boxes? What are the differences in that?
no, this I am not aware of. I think mainly you have to select the two options are there, M and P. So M is the standard translation at the average rate. So there is one option which is fixed. So usually, if you want to have a fixed translation ratio instead of letting the exchange rate being determined by any other external agency or through the exchange rate tables, that is option is also there. And which is the exchange rate type that is to be used by default, that is also indicated. So by default, that is the exchange rate type that will be available and used. And then there are certain exchange rate types which are used for specific transactions. So in which case you can have other exchange rate types. But one thing which I can say is that when you look at M, you have an option either to create a fixed exchange rate, which is rarely used, or you can benchmark it against any other external variable, which can be two options. One is you directly link with a real-time exchange rate which is maintained through any other agency, or you can have internally maintained exchange rate tables. So these are the different possibilities which are there. Now, there's another important concept of translation ratios. So this is a very important concept because this talks about how an exchange rate is used and how the value is translated from one currency to the other. So when you are maintaining a translation ratios, usually you have two options. One is you can maintain a direct quote, or you can maintain an indirect quote. So that is one of the things that needs to be specified upfront, and then you maintain the translation ratios. So you can have an exchange rate spread. For example, you have a buying rate, which is, for example, rate G. You can have a selling rate, and then you can have an average rate, which is the somewhere in the median, which is the average of your buying rate and your selling rate. And the difference between your buying rate and selling rate is your spread. So this is the concept of base currency, which we already talked about. So let us understand what is the difference between direct quotation and indirect quotation. So it's the same concept which we are talking about. So for example, if the host currency is dollar and you want the translated value to euros, then you maintain it as 1.26. And the same exchange rate can be maintained as an indirect quotation, where you where the base is the other currency, not your home currency. So in that case, the exchange rate is maintained as 0.78. Both options are possible. So whenever exchange rates are maintained, one has to specify that whether you want to go for a direct quote or an indirect quote.
Sir, here if the local currency is euro, then euro to USD should not be direct quote.
No, in this case, local currency is euro. So whenever you have a USD value, then that is translated So the value that is translated to the home currency, that is the direct quote, and indirect quote
Okay, okay.
is the reverse.
Okay, okay. So to arrive at a home currency rate is a direct quote.
Correct.
Okay.
So a small example to demonstrate a direct quotation and indirect quotation. A little more of detail we are getting into this. So let us say that local currency is euro and a foreign currency is USD. And we are saying that direct quotation is 1 USD equals 1.2 euros. So this means that 1 unit of the foreign currency, 1 unit of USD costs 1.2 euros. Similarly, indirect quote, we say 1 euro equals 0.7 USD, which means that 1 unit of the local currency costs 0.7 USD. That's the way it works. So now we'll look at the screen where we maintain the exchange rates. So this maintenance of the exchange rates is a front end. So you don't note that you don't need to go to SPRA for this. So accounting, financial payable, document entry. So this entry can be accessed through many possibilities. So here we are looking at a simple vendor invoice, which is posted in a foreign currency. So we are simply booking an invoice. So in the invoice screen, there is a tab called the local currency. So here, the local currency is USD. Uh, so when you say local currency is USD, you say local currency is USD when the company code currency is USD. Or when you say a local currency is euro, is when the company code currency is euro. So in this case, the company code is a European, is for a European entity, and it is maintained in euros. So in this screen, you see the translated values. So even before you have posted, system will fetch the details from the screen where the translation ratios are maintained, and they will populate it. So here the group currency is same, so there's no difference. But here they are using the concept of a hard currency, which is used very rarely. But anyway, just for hypothetical situation, this is another currency which is being maintained. So here you see a different value, and this is based on the exchange rate that has actually been used by the system. Now let's see how you see currency codes. So currency codes, once again, it is not in the easy menu, it is in the IMG, as it's a configuration item. NetWeaver general settings, currencies. Check currency codes. So let's say you want to see USD. So now we will see how the translation ratios are maintained and determined. There's a specific transaction, defined translation ratios. So this is the classical screen where you are maintaining the ratios from one currency to the other. And this has to be maintained for each exchange rate type. So from USD to EUR. So this is where you are maintaining the translation ratios. So once you have specified the exchange rate types, now you have to actually specify the exchange rates. Type has been set. Now you maintain the exchange rates. So for that also you have to go through the same menu path. You go to NetWeaver, General Settings, then you have the currencies. Then you click on Enter Exchange Rates. So this is the classical exchange rate maintenance screen where you specify the exchange rate type, you specify the source currency, the target currency. So here you see that this is a indirect quote which is maintained for your exchange rate type, and this is the screen which can be manually maintained, and the data that is here in the screen can also be interfaced with any other external agency, in which case the need to manually maintain this table is not there.
So sorry. In this particular example, our local currency or company code currency was euro. Then how come euro to USD was indirect quote?
The
The
euro
exchange
to
rate we just saw,
yeah,
euro to USD was mentioned as indirect quote, but this company in our example has a company code currency euro.
no, that is okay because from one currency to the other you can maintain both direct quote as well as the indirect quote.
No, appreciate, but what we discussed earlier in earlier slide was that any foreign currency to the local currency is a direct quote and local currency to foreign currency is indirect quote. But here
Yeah,
what we saw was completely opposite. That's what I was saying.
yeah, that opposite is also possible because the the usual case is that you base your how much of local currency units can be bought by 1 unit of foreign currency, that is your direct quote, but you can maintain it different in a different way also. There is no such restriction. That is the normal definition of direct quote, but when you are maintaining the exchange rates, you can actually maintain both direct quote as well as an indirect quote, because if you see, for example, Bloomberg as an exchange rate, they always go for indirect quotes regardless of which is your base currency. So both
No, I
options are
agree.
possible.
Sir, I agree. Direct quote and indirect quote both will give us the same result. But I was more on the definition part of that.
Correct. You're right. You're right. From a definition perspective, that is the conventional definition.
This was incorrectly mentioned. That's what I was saying. Nothing more.
Correct. Correct. Agree.
Mr. Bhattacharya, can you give some example of how it is done from external sources and how it is done?
Sorry, can you come back on your question?
You mentioned that this can be done from external sources also. This exchange rate can be done from external sources also. So is it an automatic thing?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't get your question. You talk about exchange rate phases
Yeah.
or what?
I'm talking about the exchange rate. We mentioned that exchange rate can be pulled out from some external sources also.
Correct.
So can you tell me some example on how it is done in this?
Yeah, so there are agencies
Yeah,
that basically maintain and report exchange rates real time. So there are two such agencies that are normally used. One is Bloomberg. There is another agency called Reuters.
Reuters, yeah. So that can be linked
So
from there.
yeah, SAP has provided some native integrations
Yeah,
with these applications.
yeah,
So if you go for these automated exchange rate maintenance,
yeah.
then the data is downloaded real time into SAP and is through the interface, through the native integrations. These translation ratios are automatically updated
Okay,
in the
got it.
exchange rate table in SAP.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So the update can be either real time or it can be at the end of a day. So the timing can be flexibly determined, but the bottom line is that the data which is appearing in the exchange rate table is fetched from those external third-party agencies who are maintaining the exchange rates, and the information from these agencies are being electronically transmitted through the native integrations which is provided by SAP. And then when you are maintaining the exchange rate, you can determine whether the updates can be real time, you can have daily, you can have other frequencies also that can be set.
Thanks, yeah, got it.
So one last thing is that exchange rate assignment, you can set up a work list and you can assign the exchange rate to the work list also. So here, for example, for certain exchange rates, you can have a daily rates which are imported from a third-party agency. For some other exchange rates, you can also have a daily update, which can be manually also. And some can be direct and some can be indirect. That kind of assignments can also be made through this exchange rate maintenance.
So where can we upload this exchange rate if we have to upload, say, Euro USD or some rates? If you have to upload on a daily basis, then
Yeah, so if you have to integrate it with a third-party agency like Bloomberg or Reuters, in that case, it is an integration, and which so you need to set up an interface. Of course, there's a standard interface provided by SAP. You just set up the interface, and once the interface is set up and activated, then the data automatically will be populated, because the way interface works is that it fetches the data from the source application, puts it in a staging area. From there, the data is picked up, and thereafter it is directly pushed into the SAP tables. So the update is in that case happening through the integration, which makes an automatic update to the SAP tables, the table in which you are maintaining the exchange rates.
and sir, if you have to manually add, is there any Excel upload or something by way, or manually you have to punch in the data? If you
Yeah,
don't want
it
to
is
do
usually
that,
right. So there's a transaction where we have just seen where you are maintaining for a different exchange rate types. What is the source? What is the target? Whether it's a direct quote or an indirect quote. So there's a single entry screen available. So you can go into that screen and enter it. Excel upload is by default not available, but it can be customized. So
okay. And
if
sir,
you are maintaining
and
it
sir,
manually, yeah, you can manually enter it for the specific exchange rate type in that particular screen.
And sir, if you don't update, for example, we mentioned that it will be daily updated, but if you don't update on a particular day, so it will continue to use the last rate
Right.
which we update.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you want to use a work list, so from a front end, how it looks like. So here, this is where you can get into the screen where you can set up a work list, where you can update using the work list. Click enter exchange rates. So here you are entering the exchange rate manually. You mention the exchange rate, the exchange rate type is maintained. You specify the valid from. The validity period also needs to be maintained, and then you save it.
Sir, this validity period, if we are keeping only 1 day, still it will be applied on second day if we will not update. Is that so?
So if you are keeping a validity period of a certain exchange rate, it will remain the same unless it is overridden by another entry. So for example, you want to maintain it on a weekly basis. So you enter it today, then the exchange rate entered today remains valid for the next 6 days, including.
And what will happen after? What will happen after 7 days if we don't update the new one?
If you do not update, then the exchange rate will be non-existent. I mean, system will assume that there is no exchange rate. It will give an error message because you have specified a validity period. But if it's an open-ended exchange rate, then it will continue indefinitely, and it will be
Okay,
overridden
so-
by the next possible entry.
Okay. And sir, this date, if we have given this particular expiry date or what we can call it as a validity period, then at the time when the particular date expires, any data entry person will get the kind of notification that the exchange rate is not there, or it's
No.
only the person who is authorized will get.
Yeah, whoever is booking the transaction, or if it's an automated posting, then it will fail if the exchange rate has validity period has expired. So whenever you are booking a transaction, you are going to get an error message that translation ratios are not maintained.
Hello.
Okay, and sir, just last question on that.
Yeah, sure.
For example, my currency, local currency is euro, and there is a foreign currency is USD. So if I'm entering any particular transaction only in euro, then it will accept. But if I'm going to enter any transaction with USD as the document currency, then only it will fail, right?
Now see, here you have brought up another topic which we discussed at the time of general ledger. So normally when you are posting a transaction, let's say your company code currency is INR. So if your company code currency is INR, then you can post a foreign exchange transaction or any other currency, provided the general ledger account is maintained as INR as the local currency. So let's say the company code is INR and you are simply posting, let's say, an expense account. The expense account is maintained in INR, right? Then you can post in any other foreign currency and the system will translate based on the translation ratios. But if your local currency is INR and you have a GL account which is maintained in any other currency, let's say USD, then you can only post in USD and not in any other currency. And whatever is posted in USD, of course, will then get translated into the local currency using the translation ratio. This is one thing that you have to keep in mind. So
Okay,
the
so if
currency
the-
in which the GL account is maintained is of relevance also.
currency in which the GL account is maintained. If it is a foreign currency and if exchange rate is not maintained, then the entry will not pass. Correct. But if we are
No,
maintaining
foreign exchange, that is another question. Now, so this is the first part that we talked about. If you are posting in the local currency, if the GL account is maintained in the local currency, you can post in any other currency. If the GL account is maintained in a foreign currency, you can only post in that foreign currency. So, for example, if the GL account is maintained in USD and you are booking a transaction in Euro, system will give you an error message that this general ledger account is not enabled to uh, deal with postings in Euro because it is a GL account which is maintained in USD. Now, this is one angle. The other thing is that the exchange rate, if the exchange rate is not maintained, for example, the GL account is maintained in INR and INR is the local currency. Rather, the INR is the company code currency. In that case, if you are booking an USD amount, if you are booking a USD invoice for that particular GL account, then the system will translate based on the exchange rates that are prevailing on the date of the transaction. And this data will be fetched from the translation from the table where the exchange rate translation settings are maintained, where you are maintaining the exchange rate ratios.
but if there is no such rate is there for that particular day, then the transaction will fail, right?
It depends on what kind of exchange rates are being maintained. If the end date is indefinitely provided, let's say 9999, so in that case, the same exchange rate will continue indefinitely. But in case if you are maintaining exchange rates manually and you have given a predefined validity period, once the validity period is expired, then the system will not find any other exchange rates. So in that case, the system will give you an error message that please maintain exchange rate between USD and INR for the exchange rate type blah blah for
Okay.
this period.
Sir, and just another linked question is generally, we have that parallel ledgers. So we have local currency INR and we have a group currency of Euro. If I have a salary expense which I am paying in INR, so I will definitely book it with a document currency of INR into the ledger, which is also having a currency of INR linked with that. But
Correct.
generally, all these entries are getting also posted into my group currency ledger. Okay,
Correct.
which is my Euro ledger.
Correct.
So if the currencies are not maintained properly, so entry will not get posted into my group currency ledger. Is that so, or it will get posted, but there will be some error into that?
Entry will go into error. So if there is a problem, then the entire transaction will not be posted.
Excellent. Okay, sir. Okay, that was my doubt, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
So here, last check, we'll check the translation ratio. Again, you go to the financial accounting general ledger. Current settings. Now enter translation rates. USD to UR. Hit enter. So it's Eurex. So it will be. Of course, it is different from the normal concept of direct book, but yeah, this is exception is for the Eurex specific exchange rate type which has been created in the system. But anyway, this is a indirect quote, and you see that the ratio is valid from so and so. So in this case, there is no expiry date as such. It will be valid from that date, and it will be overridden by the next exchange rate, which can be maintained in the next date itself.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes, please.
Sir, how to calculate a cross-section ratio?
Sorry,
How to calculate cross-section ratio?
cross exchange rate. What do you mean by that? Can you explain?
Cross-sections. One or more currencies.
Yeah, so that is what we discussed. So you can have exchange rates between multiple currencies,
Yes.
and so whenever you book in any other currency, uh, in any currency other than your local company code currency, system will translate the foreign exchange value
Mm.
to the local currency based on the currently prevailing exchange rates. So system will check, go to the exchange rate table. It will find out what is the exchange rate that is prevailing on the date of the transaction. So here the posting date is relevant. System will see the translation ratios that are relevant, that are valid as on the posting date, and use that translation ratio for this conversion.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So with this, we close the session for today. I will just pause for last few questions, and we will continue with the same topic in the next day. We will continue with the other concepts relating to the financial closing, and we'll also talk about the restatement, how the restatement of values happen due to foreign exchange differences at period end. So please feel free to ask if there are other additional questions before we close for today.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, whenever we are doing the AP accounts paper, there is also we have to use a release agreement, the future booking, and how is different with the accrual accounting. Here we are doing the transaction, the future transactions, no? Month by month in accrual, and AP we are also doing
No,
the
future is
advance
the
payment.
deferrals. Yes, future is the
Yeah.
deferrals. Yeah. For example, you pay the insurance premium one time, and yeah, the benefit is something which is thereafter deferred to. You pay in this period, but then the benefits accrue to you periodically over the next financial year. That's a
Sir,
deferral.
when we are doing the AP, so you give the lease agreement, the monthly we are doing the payment for the lease as per the agreement in the future. So how is it
Correct.
differ from that?
No, lease agreement is basically an agreement for payment of a fixed amount monthly based on the lease agreement period. So it can be an agreement of, let's say, 1 year. So in that case, you need to do you can do a recurring entry posting. So I know that every month I have to pay 500,
Yes.
as 6,000 is my total contract value. So I set up a recurring entry program which gets invoked on a specific date.
Sir, same thing is happening in the accrual also, no?
Yes, accrual is basically, let's say we talk about a bank interest. Yeah, so bank is paying interest, let's say in June and in December. Now, when you are closing your books as on 31st of March, then you also need to report your income for the last 3 months, which has not been paid but which has accrued. So you need to pay tax on that particular income. This is just another example of what is accrued.
That is not concerned with the AP, something like the payment, we're not going to make the payment like that. Then we use in the accrual.
Pardon?
In AP we have the proper transactions now. We make the entry, we doing the payment. In accrual, this only we need something like quarterly and monthly, yearly entry we have done. In
Yes.
accrual, that is the main difference.
Yes. And in this case, if it's a fixed amount that you are paying on a monthly basis, which is recurring in nature, then there's a recurring entry program. So you set up a recurring entry template, you feed system which company code, which date of the month you want the entry to be posted, what is the amount, what entries accounting, which GL account is going to be debited, which GL account will be credited. You save the template and then you trigger it either manually or automatically so that the entry gets posted on the same date every month till the contract period. That is where you can use the recurring entry template.
And so there is some prior period expenses we need to perfect in the 5 year, next 5 year in the future. Then there's that type of transition we have to.
Yeah, that can be prior period expense. It just requires a journal posting. You have to post a journal entry, and it depends. You can post it in a special period because. So yeah, it really depends on whether you need to make a prior period posting based on the auditor's comments, or whether it is being posted as a part of your year-end transaction. That will determine whether you have to post it in a general period or whether you need to post it to a special period or not.
Thank you, sir.
So with this, we close the session and we will again continue the discussion on the closing in the next session. So wish you all a good night and thank you.